Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, Anamanaguchi. Their new album, Anyway, is out on polyvinyl record. It is great. Now, there's some history here. And today we are talking to Peter and Ary from Anamanaguchi, but Peter was one of the first interviews I ever did for this site back in 2010 or 2011. I guess the earlier, when the band was much younger. And you may have heard me say this before, but this site has only been a podcast for 5 years. Before that, I was transcribing everything. So you can read the old version or the old interview that we did, 14, 15 years ago. And in fact, Peter did read the interview before this one. And he told me, I think, before we officially started recording, I have a lot to say about that first one. The takeaway to this, well, first of all, this is a big departure because this is the first album of Anamanaguchi's where they are recording their own vocals. I mean, if you know the band, they have samples of vocals from other people, not the band, on past albums. This is the first one where they are doing their own singing, and I really, really like the album. It's great. And there's a couple things that stand out. One, if you've ever heard any episode of this podcast, I always talk about how we get our best ideas in the shower. And in fact, not only does Peter affirm that, he uses something called Aqua Notes. Aqua Notes are waterproof notebooks that he uses in the shower. And that's amazing to get those ideas. The other thing is both Peter and Ary, we touched on music, but we touched on visual art, videos, German philosophers, writers. These guys, and I'm sure it's the same way with all of the band, I'd say music is only a very, very tiny part of their inspiration. I mean, they are inspired, like I said, by movies and visual art and paintings and video games and everything possible in the creative world. And that really struck me in this conversation was how much, again, I think they are inspired only a tiny bit by music. They're inspired by so much. And that's why I just loved talking to Peter and Ary about not just the process, but what inspires them. So anyway, check out the old interview with Peter, and here is the new one. Again, their new album is called Anyway. It is out on polyvinyl record, and here is my interview with Peter and Ary of Anamanaguchi. Pete, we'll start with you.
Cool.
How important is it for you to create in some fashion every day? Like, is that a part of your daily routine, or do you feel like forcing it makes things derivative? If you feel like, oh, I don't feel like creating, but I kind of should be because I'm an artist.
Yeah, for me, honestly, it making anything comes from the luxury of leisure time, I'd say. And like I don't know, I've always, maybe it's definitely a luxury, yeah. But I've made sure to give myself an enormous amount of like taking it easy time. And sorry, I let me start that over again. Yeah, like for me, I can't really force myself to write anything. I just I've had one job my entire life. I used to deliver pizza when I was 18, and that lasted until I got fired for playing the first Anamanaguchi show at the cake shop in the Lower East Side. So the result of Anamanaguchi in early days was me not doing my homework and staying up till like 5 in the morning. And now it's the result of now that like Anamanaguchi has sort of like become my job. I don't know. It's tricky where sometimes the records have taken 6 years to make, sometimes they happen in a month. But yeah, normally it comes from giving myself the time to like not really think about anything else. And yeah, I think when I think about it like work, it's the second that it stops happening, I think. So it's for me, it's always yeah, it's a tricky balance where sometimes there's a deadline and it gets really good, and sometimes I really need actually to pretend like there's no pressure at all. So yeah, but
Okay, so
leisure
do
is
you
the key. Yeah,
yeah, so do you devote time to it every day, or do you find that it happens naturally enough every day that you don't need to?
it's natural, definitely natural, and it's definitely not every day for me. um, I think like um, unless there's a okay, we're doing this right now, then I can actually just be on for a month at a time, actually, or longer. But in like the general goings on of like life, I find that if I leave myself open enough, something will just happen. Um, but for instance, when we made this last record anyway, we made the decision to write together. And so we decided to spend a month together in this house in Illinois. And uh, that was a completely different process than the way that we had written before. And that was more like the idea of like make something every day kind of thing. But in a way, it was more like an extended month long vacation. It's sort of what it felt like. It's like we had permission to like kind of just play all day long. Um, and yeah, I'm really stoked with what came out of that.
Ari, how about you? Do you feel it's important to create in some fashion every day?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about, I definitely co-sign the leisure vibes. I feel like, and for me, it's definitely important to like practice every day. And a lot of stuff is like not necessarily like practice the way it was like when I was a kid learning an instrument, but like kind of, I'll still kind of just like open stuff up and like play with it just kind of as like a form of like, I, I don't know, like almost like a sport or something, I guess. Just kind of like, it's definitely like, I like to engage with it, but like the actual like creative practice might be way more far and few between. And same thing, you can't really like force that too much. Also, like that one just kind of pops off and then it snowballs from there. But I feel like I don't know. I definitely like the reverse of that. Like I've never really felt like a writer's block type thing. Like I'm usually one to just always be like on and just kind of like playing with stuff and like pumping stuff out. Like and even if it's like bad, it's like whatever. It just feels good to like write something and just be like, all right, there's like a here's an idea, here's a thought. Let me like change some instruments if I'm not feeling like writing right now. I'll just do some like orchestrating instead or like that kind of vibe. So I feel like I like to touch stuff on a daily, more regimented level. But when it comes to like the actual like writing, creative, that's not as like 9 to 5. It's a little different.
So when things aren't happening and you have those, we won't call it a writer's block, we'll call it a rut. Ari, are there certain tricks? Like for me, I step away. I never push. I feel like the second I start to push an issue, then things just do not work. But when you get writer's block, the things you tend to do to kind of push through?
I think that's when I resort to doing like what I guess I'm calling like more like practice or work type stuff. You know, it's like that's not when I'm going to hope to write a great melody. Then I'll be like, I'm not going to try and do that right now. I'm going to like do some production stuff or I'm going to like transpose or like I'll like try and like cover a song or like I'll transpose something or I'll like open up a song we've been working on already and be like I'll maybe like re-record some of the parts or something. Like do some more of like the maintenance type work instead of like the creative decision work.
But that's interesting. So you're still like, for me, I will get away from any type of writing, but you still stay in the music space.
I'll definitely still stand. Yeah, I feel like if anything, I'm like paranoid of doing the opposite. Like I'm definitely like, well, I'm not gonna like run from this. Like I'm still like I'm not like scared to touch this file. Like I can definitely still sit with it and exist with it. I'm not gonna be like, all right, no music until the next great idea comes or something. Like I'm very
Cool.
very comfortable with bad ideas. It's fine.
All right, Pete, how about you? Are there things that you, if you do find yourself stuck, do you have certain tricks that you
Oh, it's
rely
so
on?
easy. I'll just do anything else. Yeah. Like I have so many hobbies. It's actually it's a problem. I I'll I've become something of a professional amateur at competitive video game playing. I play this game, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. So honestly, I live in Dallas. There's a weekly tournament every day. It's like, oh, it's Monday. I can drive to downtown Dallas. It's Tuesday. I could go to Denton. It's Wednesday. I could go to Plano. So I have so many things to occupy my time. I can spend time with my family. I can I read a lot. I read now less than I used to, but that's just because I think I've been so busy. Um, Not so much with writing, but with like editing and other stuff. Because I also do video stuff for the band. I do releasing an album. It turns out I think is actually more work than writing an album. I've just found this out. So that's funny. It's a funny ratio of work there. Um, Feels like more work to release it than to write it and make it. Um, but yeah, the things that I'll do, like like I just said, it's I will pretend that it doesn't exist. I will leave that place entirely um, until it might even be like 2 weeks later, where it's like I'm gonna go back to the studio, and then I open the file and I'm right back where I was, or like I go to that page or whatever, and it's yeah, that's what I was feeling. Okay, cool. Let's revisit that immediately. Oh, something something that's really been amazing for me. Um, I got these things called Aqua Notes. They're they are like stick on post-it notes that are waterproof, and you can use them in the shower. So it's the greatest thing. It's actually life changing. So um, yeah, like it will strike me. I don't know. I'm a hurried, busy sort of person, which is why leisure is important. So for some people, showers are the only leisure that they get. So yeah.
Okay, Ari, I'm going to ask you this, then Pete will come back to you because the question at some point, one thing I always ask is, is how often do you get ideas when your brains are engaged in unconscious activities? Okay, so I'll give you some context. The quote I always give songwriters is by the writer Agatha Christie, and she said, the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. So when our brains are engaged in unconscious activities that require no conscious thought, whether it's doing the dishes, whether it's, I've heard vacuuming, mowing the lawn, doing the laundry, folding clothes, driving. Now, there was actually an article in the Washington Post last year about why we get our best ideas in the shower. So, because when your brains can be engaged in something that requires nothing, that's when the eureka moments happen. So, Ari, we'll start with you. But how often do you find that happens?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. I feel like I've definitely had like the speed of ideas definitely like the like thought to them being fully fleshed out happens very quickly if it's like sort of a passive experience. I feel like I don't know. I can also be like that shower person, but I also have found myself that my brain can just go full like existential in the shower very quickly too. Like it goes from like it'd be cool to change like this melody to like maybe we should put a record out like this to like maybe there's more to life than music and like then maybe like I could see myself in 50 years, doing this or something and like it'll it'll get crazy. But also sometimes it's like it hits and I'm like, oh, there's a good idea. I should try and hold on to that. I've definitely done the dreaming thing, which I guess is like tried and true classic, but I feel like I didn't experience that till probably pretty late in life, where it was like a literal just like wake up and just be like, oh, I have a full melody, like here it is, like there it is, like let me just where's my computer, like I need to write this down or something. Um, yeah, I think I find a lot of like recentering and rebalancing when faced with a distraction. I definitely think also it's kind of like the reverse Zen approach of that one, where it's like, especially also like when we're writing like as a band together, like when we're like multiple people, I feel like when we're just kind of like plummeting through like hilarious and stupid, dumb ideas, like where it's just kind of like literally to like throw everything at the wall, chaos style, where it's like it sort of becomes like a version of like a passive writing because it's like we couldn't even like it'd be hard to catch a single thing at the like at the rate that we're moving of just being like, yo, this is funny, this is funny, this is silly, this is silly. It's like we'll do that and then eventually, like 30 ideas later and like within like a minute span, it's like kind of like, oh, that's actually a good idea. Like we'll like kind of like stumble on something and be like, wait, that's actually good. We should maybe check that out.
I want to follow up with you one thing, and that is that have you noticed that being in, let's say, New York City versus being in upstate New York, does that change the type of writing that you're doing? Some people say depending on what the environment they're in, they've noticed actually the type of writing changes. Do you notice that at all?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like one thing that's like I found myself like doing very comically really quickly, bouncing back and forth, is that I love listening to like techno and rave music when I'm like upstate, and I love listening to like country music and like hick stuff when I'm in the city. Like I definitely find like a opposites attract thing immediately with that. Same thing vibe wise. I feel like it's like I probably in the city I'm like writing something a bit more like chill and like low key, and like up here I'm like the opposite where it's like, oh, beautiful scenery, like I'm gonna go full maximalist, like make it crazy and stuff. So there's definitely like an opposites thing that happens. I think there's like a inherent escapism to like a lot of the writing. So it's like, yeah, if you're reflecting to your world, you're probably going to escape the opposite of whatever's there, I guess.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but I could see that. All right, Pete. So now you know why you're doing all that writing in the shower. Now that I told you, it's because we get our best ideas there. So that's
Yeah,
why when you said the Aquanotes, I was like, that's the most amazing thing ever.
yeah, they're huge.
Given that, yeah. So, okay. So, shower or otherwise, you notice the ideas come to you when your brains are engaged in any type of monotonous activity.
Yeah, and I'd actually add on to that where recently, when it comes to writing lyrics, especially, or getting a new perspective on something that you're working on, uh, quoting McLuhan here, in that the best ideas or best discoveries even happen while you're talking to someone, not before and not after. Like you'll find out what you're doing by trying to explain it to someone, basically, or like trying to put it into words, and you'll suddenly find some new angle, some new dimension that makes it clearer to you what it is, what's going on. Um, and yeah, that's what happens a lot, and I think what has really helped blossom this band in a really cool way over the past like decade or so is that we talk to each other a lot, and like, whoa, what if we did this instead? um yeah. um there's something monotonous about talking to each other, but there's also something like um yeah, passive, like you said, um in listening. You throw something out there, then maybe it's like something in the reaction of the person that's like, wait, I didn't expect that, and it fires something off. Who knows?
Okay, let's talk about the words because this is the first, right? The first album that has lyrics on it. I mean, Ari, we'll start with you. What was the collaboration like when it came to lyric writing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would a few things of note. So it's like we've played with vocals in the past, right? On like songs with featured vocalists or like other vocalists. So like we have like a very baby history of dabbling with that. And that our experience with that pretty much exclusively, I'm trying to think if there's any situation. I'm pretty sure exclusively has been like track first. Now let's go and dive into some like vocal things. Often it's also even like melody first before words in our past stuff. But then that one's gone a few different directions, but primarily. So I think and that's like I feel like we've also like tackled a lot of like lyric stuff communally as a band because it was sort of like kind of same thing where there's not a lead singer the way there was in like in the past, right? So it'd be sort of like anyone can kind of throw an idea out and like let's just like start it's almost like sudokuing some like words into this where it's like let's just like place them in and like see where stuff is like lining up. um I think with this one I think gravitated towards that even though we knew it was gonna be like a very different experience with writing the words and what's going to be performed and how it's sang, I think we still, because it was a very new world for us, kept it relatively close to like our past experience of being like, let's get some like good songs going. And good songs often start with just a melody. That's usually the case with us. And then we're like, then we will eventually do the vocals and the lyrics eventually. And like, yeah, a lot of like the starting with like kind of like vocal lines and then, just kind of temp words and then like building it. But that's not true for every song. It kind of varied.
So did all of the songs did the lyrics on each of the songs, were they all, did all the members have input on the lyrics in every song? How did that work?
Mix and match. A handful were very much like all just in the room together, just kind of like playing with ideas, throwing them together. And then other ones were more Pete like coming through, which is kind of like, I've got this pretty dialed in here. Like this is the vibe. And yeah, I think we like kind of go from there. I think there were like a lot of songs where we would sort of kind of like same thing, like sort of like push each other's limits, I think, of like both performance wise but also lyrically of like, do you think we could get away with like saying these things? Like, does it make sense? Like, is it like fun or is it too crazy? Um, so there's a lot of kind of like push pull stretching with that. But other ones were kind of just ready to go.
So, Pete, let me ask you this: when you're collaborating when more than one person's involved in lyric writing, I know that when it comes to prose writing, I've never written a song in my life, but I've written with other people, and I know that the challenge, like when I co-wrote the book, and this is not a shameless plug for my book, but when I co-wrote the book with Mark Morton, the challenge was when I would add stuff, doing it in his voice, because it's not my voice. And so whenever a prose writer collaborates with someone else, that's always the challenge, is how do you make it sound like it's coming from one person? So was that difficult at all when when more than one of you is writing lyrics?
Yeah, for me, the challenge, honestly, it would have been more challenging to pretend at this point in the band's career that like my voice would just be the band, like if I were writing something that was in my voice, it's not Anamanaguchi to me. Like, we're a band and we've been a band for 20 years now. So I felt like since we've never sung, like, I don't know, it's a little weird, but the attitude that I felt was like, this should be the band's voice and not just my voice. Even though I'm the one that's like physically singing most of the time on the record, like I'm the lead singer. I'm definitely like, I'm trying to make something that we can all sort of like stand behind and feel good about. And you have situations where maybe the band is down to stand behind the singer's like most deepest personal weirdness and things that they feel or whatever. There's a bit of that on the record, but ultimately, like, we're all friends, and I want the record to feel like that. So I asked for input as much as possible, and the challenge then became like, how do we make this sound like us when we're together, like the band, the four of us who have been together for this long, and something that we could all sort of get behind and feel stoked about. While at the same time, I want to sing it and be convincing about it. So that was the delicate balance, which is a balance I've honestly been trying to figure out this whole time, and I think I'm stoked about it. So I like that push and pull.
Pete, we'll stick with you on this one. When ideas come to you immediately, like those lightning in the bottle moments, are you more likely to just stay hands off? There's a reason why it happens so quickly. I'm not going to touch it. Or are you less trustful of ideas that come to you all at once?
No, I fully I tend to just trust that 100%, just because of my experience. Like, anytime I've done that, it's worked out great. Um, Even like one of our most viewed YouTube videos is a cover that my friend was like, "Oh, we should watch Game of Thrones tonight." I had never seen it. And then like we watched a couple episodes and then I instantly had the theme song in my head and I came up with the lyrics, Thrones fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones, fucking Game of Thrones. And that night I recorded Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones to the melody of the song. And that's like up there on our, like, for our whole musical career. That's up there. Like, and nothing stopped that. And there's a lot of instances with the band too, and with other silly things that I've pursued. It's like, it's honestly harder to stop me when that happens than it is to not trust it.
Ari, how about you? Do you feel the same way, or are you more suspicious of things that happen too quickly?
No, I think I'm on the same team. Having watched the success of fucking Game of Thrones, I knew immediately that like that's the recipe to success right there. No, I don't know. I think as like for myself, I feel this way. I think as a band, also we kind of like to just push each other on that tip. Also, being kind of like if something's happening, like we'd like watch it roll. Like we'll definitely like keep pushing it to its extreme and like seeing where it hits and where it lands. I think usually kind of like path of least resistance. If something's resisting, try and get around it as many times as possible until you eventually just someone's like, you can't do this, and you're done.
So, Ari, then do you, if an idea just you get stuck in a certain place, or actually let me ask this a different way. Do you have ideas going back on your phone or somewhere years and years that you occasionally will revisit? Some songwriters who've been writing for 20 years, they have songs that they started 20 years ago that are only now appearing. How often do you go back to those, kind of reach back into the archives?
All the time. I mean, like I would to tie it like to the earlier question, like to me that's part of also like if I'm not doing something creative, that's part of like the practice part section of kind of like I'll still stay in the music world, but I'm not necessarily gonna make stuff. I'm gonna like go back and like listen to like everything that's there. I've lost a lot of computers somehow. I've had pretty poor luck with this in terms of them being stolen or me being an idiot. But
Mostly stolen.
mostly stolen. Pretty high stolen rate for the average laptop owning individual somehow. But I've lost a shitload of music that way. I've gotten very good at like anytime I make something or just touch something, I'll be like, cool, like export an MP3 just so it exists in some version for like the journal, the archive of it, basically. And so, that's I've definitely got like just my iTunes is pretty much exclusively just like, little 1 minute sketch ideas from the last many, 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 many years that I'll just throw that on shuffle and go through there and be like, oh, that hits. Oh, that's cool. Like I like this still, or like that's stupid, that's bad. No, I love going back and listening on stuff, honestly. That's like it's one of my favorite things to do. I'll definitely do that like at the end of like something that I'm kind of like working hard on something like all day. I'll like kind of unwind that way also. I feel like by just going back and like listening to ideas. And then more recently too. I mean, like the way we were writing, like the way we were writing in the past, it'd be a lot of like us sending files to each other and stuff. Like even when we like all lived in New York and we were like all like, blocks away from each other, it was like the writing was happening in like a singular file basically that we could like share. And with this last album, like we were writing in real life in the ether. We were playing instruments together and stuff, and we sort of did need like a way of kind of like logging what we were doing. So the iPhone voice memos were the heavyweight in archiving everything that we were doing. Like it was like, right, here's an idea, like let's just record everything constantly basically. So I'm pretty sure all four of us have like completely maxed out voice memo.
Oh yeah,
I
we
was
were all
going to
recording.
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there any, I guess, Ari first, then Pete, is there any organization in your own phones? Because songwriters tell me all the time they have thousands of voice memos, but there's typically no organization, no labeling. They're just the date. Is there any organization to those whatsoever?
For me, no, definitely hard no. Other than like that it says where you recorded it, I guess. So I'll do it. It's kind of like like photos or something where it's kind of like just like, all right, like give me the geotag and I'll start there and go from there, which doesn't do much because my memory is awful and terrible. So I'll be kind of like, where was that one idea? And I'm like, where did I do that? I have no idea what city that was in. All right, so it's gone.
Pete, how about you? Any organization to those whatsoever, and any labeling techniques used?
Much organization whatsoever. Yes, I actually, it grew to the point where I needed to do that. Like you said, if you have
hundreds or thousands of voice memos, I would just see new recording 293 and be like, no, I need to listen to these. I'll leave them as that. In fact, they won't be named. And then I'll listen to them and very quickly name them. And if I hear, maybe I'm talking about, maybe when I listen to it, I hear like the same idea. I'm like, this will be, let me look at some of these names. Yeah, it'll be like Bounty Jam, Bounty Seed, Bounty version 45B or whatever. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't even know what Bounty is. Why is it called Bounty? Anyway, lower sequel to, and yeah, so, and a lot of them I'll delete. There's a lot of filtering. I keep folders of voice memos. I have a folder for we're working on a new video game soundtrack for the Scott Pilgrim game. There's a new sequel coming out, and I have a folder for ideas for that. I have a folder for stuff that is for the next album. I have a folder of a lot of things, and some of them will have like melodic aspects. Some of them will be like, I like to write like, this is where the idea came from. If it says seed, it's like, that's the first moment that it happened. So I know I can go back and be like, there was something here. It's the simplest version of it. If I ever like need to dig back, I can go to that or whatever. Yeah. So voice memos are just incredible. I love it so much. I have so much new gear musically speaking that I'm the kind of person who's always inspired by, like, when I hear something new, the first thing that I come upon is usually what's most exciting. And so, yeah, plugging in a guitar with a new pickup, or like using a new amp, or like even trying the amp in a different way or whatever. It's like cycling through presets on a keyboard. Normally you hear something and, you know, you're trying to have that lightning strike. And if you have a voice memo ready to go, it's amazing. In fact, this is something that I think is really worth talking about as for a creative process. We just made a music video called Magnet, where
I love it.
Thank you. Where we're pretending to send Batman song to the Batman people to get it approved for the soundtrack. We made that with this guy Jared Robb, who is he directed it, but he also works with this group, these directors over in Canada, Nirvana the band, the show, which we're huge fans of. And they have a way of doing things which is very like reality focused. So when we were doing this like little opening segment for the music video, where we're like supposed to send music to the Batman supervisor people, Jared said to us, don't look anything up in advance. Don't I want, when you're recording this, I want you guys to sit down around the computer and, like you would, be, how do we send this to the Batman music people? So we did that. We wound up doing that, and we got this this shot where we're scrolling through the actual music supervisor website, which we didn't know about, and we found out they're in New York, and we scrolled down a couple people underneath the Batman guy, and we saw someone I've known since I was 5 years old, works at this company, and that we all know, that like played bass with us, filling in for James back in 2019, like a very, very, very close friend. And so we get this genuine reaction of, holy shit, and it's real. Like, and so something I think that one of the Nirvana the band, the show guys, said about that moment is like, you get Oscar winning performances from people who are actually just being real. And that's how I feel about just being ready with the voice memo. Because if you try to do something again, if you try to recapture it, it's just going to be a little bit off, and you won't be in love with it in the same way. Some people call this demoitis, but I think it's really about like capturing that moment of discovery. And recorded music, you're already away from the real thing. So you need to keep that fidelity as much as possible to that original inspiration. And so I just love voice memos. And so I think that I wish that Apple made it easier to organize them. Although I do like the idea of folders. But I think with this new record, it's the first time, like the one that we're probably working on right now, it's the first time that I'm using them, I think, in a smart way. Whereas when we did the record anyway, in the house, it was just like record all the time, and we also had tapes going, and yeah, it was like learning to use voice memos in a good way. And now I feel like kind of leveled up in my voice memo game.
Ary, I'll ask you this question, then ask Pete this question. Was it, when you're all four in the same house, was it harder? I feel like over email or when we're not face to face with someone, it's always easier to be more open and honest because you don't have to face that person, over email or over the phone or anything like that. So did you find that made it harder? Was it harder or easier to be more open and honest about how you felt about ideas if you're face to face with that person?
That's a tough question. I feel like the pacing, I guess the pacing of like, having a conversation is like you're kind of going to work through that a bit more naturally, I think, than like if you are emailing, you can sort of sit with like your feelings and reactions and like, you can send something like hoping that the other person will respond a certain way, like because you have that like time buffer to like give yourself an expectation of what's going to happen. Uh, I think there was like a bit less of this, right? Like it'd be sort of like, I think in both directions, right? Like if I had a really good idea and I played it, like I'd be like, oh, I really hope there's going to be some great feedback on this if I was sending it over email, right? But if I was just in the room with everybody else, like I would just kind of play it, and there would be no time to be like, oh, I hope I have great feedback. I'd just be like, what's the feedback? Like, how are we feeling? Do we like it or not? And the same goes in like the opposite direction, right? I feel like there's a lot of probably like half baked ideas that I would not email to everyone and be like, do you think there's like a little something here or not? Like I'd be like, oh, it's not worth emailing because I'm not fully sold on it. And those ideas we could express like much more easily in person. It can be like, cool, like I'm like you're watching me in real time, just baking up some ideas. So it can sort of be like there was no kind of like, oh, I would never share this. Like it's kind of like, no, I'm doing it, sharing it live. Like you're seeing it, it's happening. There's like stuff to pick up on it. So I think probably like a lot less emotional friction inherently to doing it together. Perhaps you can get emotionally headier if it's like on an email, but I think it's just like happening. It's still happening in person, just quicker, and like it's a bit less conscious, I guess. Like it's kind of like the feelings are happening, just you're not taking time to think about them. They're just bouncing quickly, which was great. Loved doing that. It seems hard to do it any other way these days, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it's extraordinarily easy for me to be lazy over an email or just like be like, yeah, it's good. Where like in person, I can't stop myself from reacting to something that I hear. Or like it demands my full attention because it's right in front of me. And yeah, like over an email, like I can like sit with a track. Honestly, I can be like, it's extremes for me in email. Like if I get sent something, I might be lazy and be like, cool. Or I might be like, everything about this needs to change. Like it's I feel like I just can't do my fullest I'm not a great respondent on email unless it's like something that's really close to done that I've already put some input in or something. Like let's say we're getting a mix revision or something over email. I'll be like, oh, okay. Like I could write out easily a set of things that need to change or how I think about it. Very easy to make those judgments. But if it's something that's like, when you think about this, I'll be like, cool. Or I don't know, but yeah, to Ari's point of like, if he's playing something, I might be like, oh, fuck yeah, that's sick. That works great for this. Or like try something else. It's very easy in that setting, I think.
I feel like also like an interesting side note that you just reminded me of, Pete, also was just like how we did the mixing with Dave Fridman. Like it feels it feels like a similar thing of like in person versus not in person. Like the way we were mixing tracks, we'd do it incredibly quickly, and it literally we would not be in the room for it. Like Dave would like do a mix and like take the whole day doing it, and then we would just all go in the room together and just react to it instantly. Like there was no we're gonna sit and email and like dial through like every little like think of that as kind of like, all right, like, what are you hearing right now on the spot all together? Which, yeah, that's felt like good. You reminded me of it when you said that, Pete. Like,
yeah,
that
no
experience.
mix notes for us for this record. Workman and Dave Fridman ever took up more than a page, and as we got through the of handwriting on a little pad, and as the record went on, as Dave mixed more tracks, we found that it was taking up maybe a 3/4 of a page or half a page or a quarter of a page by the very end. It's like we definitely dialed in like a language together. But yeah, it was yeah, like you said, Ari, when it is more like email because we're not in there while he's mixing. But yeah, we're sitting all together, and I think those judgments, yeah, are felt all at once, and we see each other, and yeah, it would never take more than a couple hours to suss out and get it where we wanted, in a way to communicate.
Let me say this. Was it harder or easier to be honest with negative feedback when you're in
For
person?
me, it's easier to be honest with negative feedback in person, actually. Like, because I know that everybody involved, like, we all trust each other. Like, for instance, I I wrote this guitar riff, and it was like a kind of Smashing Pumpkins-y kind of thing that demanded a drum line that was like equally complex but not the same rhythm. Um, and so I played it, and Luke, our drummer, was like really excited about this idea too. And they were like, "I have something," and they played it, and I was like, "No, that's not at all. Try something else." And then they tried something like really simple. I'm like, "No, not at all." Also in the other direction. And then they tried something else, and it was like, "Yeah." I'm very honest about music stuff in person. I think I'm less honest online, maybe just because it's easier to be lazy or it's easier to overreact in one way or the other with negative feedback. Like, honestly, I would rather not send negative feedback over an email. it's it's honestly easier for me to be like honest with positive feedback in person too. It's just easier to be honest in person, I think. Unless we were zooming like this or on voice memo or like we did a lot of FaceTime audio in the interim of things, like group chats. It's pretty easy to be honest there, but there's something about the format of email where, yeah, there's just some inherent laziness to it for me. It's hard to describe. Where, yeah, like I said, resorting to like, cool, that's great, like,
Yeah.
which we were really trying to avoid. Cool, that's great.
Right, right. Okay, now 2 more questions. Pete, the last time we talked was 14 years ago. We were more youthful. We had more energy back then.
Yeah.
And I'm going to quote you directly when I said, when are you most productive as a songwriter? And your response was 3 a.m. and onward. Whenever
Yeah.
anyone is asleep, I'm most productive. I'm completely isolated and in my own thoughts. I'm tired, so my mind makes these abstract connections. Are you still writing it at 3 a.m. onward?
uh, Yo, if I could, I would. And sometimes I do. But when we were at the house, we actually kept a very a schedule that was like, I don't normally fall asleep at like 11 p.m. or midnight, but at the house I did every single day, and I woke up like when the sun came up every single day. But there was one exception to that where I did hit 2011 3 a.m. mode, where there's a song on the record called Rage. It's actually the next single that we're putting out. And we had started the idea that morning. And when it was time to go to bed, normally we fire up the grill around like 9 o'clock. And then by 10 o'clock, we're out on the porch and we're chatting. And then by midnight, it's like, yeah, time to do the next day. And we go to bed. But that night, I was like, I'm going to the back room on the computer and I'm going to sit with this idea for a minute. And I programmed out a structure for the song that like I felt like sort of set the tone for it. And that felt like that moment again. That 3 a.m. But I was definitely up till like 6 in the morning. Yeah, that there is something about like the isolation that's really great. But this is almost the opposite of that. 14 years later, you know, back in 2011, I was definitely writing in a more isolated position. And this is a very warm, very together attitude, I think, which is different for sure. But yeah, I feel like if I were totally isolated from people, that is my bandmates, the result would be maybe like less cool.
I do find that songwriters like to read or get inspiration from any other type of arts, whether it's books or anything else. How much do those things inspire you?
I don't know, they inspire me a lot. I do think um I find visual art to be quite inspiring in general. I think primarily because if I have like, at least within the arts, I would say that like if I had like one most dominant category of friends, it's they're all kind of in like visual art world. I feel like I'm not friends with as many musicians or writers or most other disciplines. So I think that's not necessarily by choice, more just by environment, where it's I just see, which I like that for the record. I feel like if I were in the visual art world, I'd be annoyed if I was exclusively around that. The same way if I was just around musicians all the time talking about music, I'd be like, I'm good on that. Like I'm not a huge fan of. I love doing it with the band, and that's kind of like the extent of it. Otherwise, I don't really like want to like talk about music that much with other musicians. I like to read quite a bit. I've been enjoying this dude Sam Pink a lot recently. I like it because it's very you feel like you're in the narrator's head in a really nice way, and it's like so casual and funny. 'Cause I haven't read anything that really felt too much like that in the past, where it's so like super short sentences, like it feels like you're listening to your inner monologue basically. Like it has like a weird inner monologue cadence to it that is I'd say like nicely resonantly trippy to like read, where it's sort of kind of like, oh, I feel like I'm just talking to myself, but I'm reading it from a paper at the same time. Movie wise, I'm gonna drop this movie Riddle of Fire that I just enjoyed a lot from like last year that I keep pushing on the rest of the lads in the
I still
band.
haven't seen it. I need to see
Proper
it.
proper banger. It's just really fun. I love a like fun movie like that. It's very like, I don't know, it feels like my childhood summer energy put into like one movie, basically. And yeah, I don't know. It's a banger. It's like really everything's green and lush, and you have like these kids that are like on a mission, and they're like on like tiny little dirt bikes with some like paintball guns they stole from like a Walmart, and they're just like on their own like fantastic magical like missions, but like all just to get pie for like their sick mom, and like it's like pure chaos in the best way. Um, Also feels very inner monologue-y to me. Um, yeah, I would say, I think those are my answers.
All right. Pete, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say I know 14 years ago I was reading Ludwig Wittgenstein. I still was a little bit semi recently, and by semi recently I mean like 8 years ago. Um, but that train of thought actually led me to the world of Marshall McLuhan, and then further to this Italian German writer Romano Guardini, who happens to be a priest who wrote these like amazing metaphysical things in going back to like the 1910s all the way up through the 1960s. He wrote this. There's two aspects of this that I think that are worth mentioning that are like really inspirational to me. What I found inspirational in McLuhan is not so much his writings on media, though those are all incredible. But actually, I have right here behind me his dissertation on the classical trivium, um, which is, grammar, dialectics, and rhetoric. So, especially as words come into play for what we do, um, structure, even like just stuff as simple as rhetorical figures, ways that you can employ words to get reactions from people. The history. This is basically a history book going back to like, you know, uh, Socrates or whatever, and then going up to Elizabethan England and including all of the Middle Ages in that, like from 400 to like 1200, stuff that I'd never really known about or studied. But there was so much depth in this that really, honestly, shook my world, and it was very, very cool. And then when it comes to Guardini, he also had this like metaphysical writing titled "The Oppositions" or "Contrasts." In German, it's "Der Gegensatz." Hasn't been translated into English yet, but I wanted to read it, so I had Google help me with that. And the translation it provided was not perfect, but I did go paragraph by paragraph, numbering them and having some German proofreader friends take a look at it. And it's pretty bang on. Google did a good job with their robots, I guess. And so what I love about his oppositions writing, the opposites or whatever, is he talks about reality as existing with these tensions, these push-pulls between the basic structure of like physical reality, where we discover, atoms don't actually touch each other kind of thing, but like even as simple as like, man, there's a lot to talk about. He's great. It's great. Please read it. It doesn't exist in English. I don't know how you will read it, but if you come upon my Google translation, hopefully it will be complete soon. However, the coolest part about it is the oppositions between you, like your inner world and your outer world, basically. And I found it to be like a wellspring of inspiration. Yeah, he there's like a lot of writing that he has about meditation and stuff that I just think the English world has yet to discover. And it's because I think the English world is a little distracted by his religious writings, which are also great. But yeah, his junior peer at the University of Freiburg, Martin Heidegger, is the guy who gets the flowers in English for some reason. I don't enjoy reading Heidegger at all. But Guardini, I think, is a good sell for anybody who is interested in the things that Heidegger talks about.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug, my book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form, and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.